All right, this is episode number 7 of Into the Absurd with Tyler Moye. All right, discipline is freedom. What does that mean to you?
Ooh, starting off with the good questions already. Discipline equals freedom is it's a philosophy by Jocko Willink. He's a ex-Navy SEAL. He came up with this idea that having discipline throughout your daily life and daily routine is going to equate to having the freedom that you want, right? And that idea really resonates with me because, even just like a small example of this, right? You spend all day and you get all your homework done and you do all your studies and your reading, right? And then you get the whole evening free, or you get the whole week free. That's your freedom. You get to go do what you want. So that's like a smaller example. So then you can apply that, universally. So
And that's self-discipline, right?
exactly, self-discipline. So then you talk about like, okay, having discipline in your workouts. So you're constantly going to the gym, you're disciplined with it. You're going to the schedule that you set with yourself. And you're in there and you're having discipline while you're working out as well. You're pushing yourself to get that extra rep or, to go 5 pounds heavier or something. That equates to the freedom of having the body you want, or the freedom of having the endurance you want, So it just applies to all these different ways. And then another example I'd give is, in business. So, you can't just sit around and hope that a business is going to grow. So if you have the discipline to every day, be contributing some energy to that business. And it takes a lot of discipline because there's days you wake up, I don't want to work on it today. I don't want to do it today, right? And so you push through that. You have the discipline to continue working on the things that you care about. And then your business grows. Okay, now your business is making money. Okay, now I have the freedom to go take some time off and go hang out in Thailand for a little bit, right? Like those are just all examples, but I hope that sort of should all help explain like the idea of discipline equals freedom.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, the big thing is that it's not just that you're investing time into yourself to get freedom later on.
Mm-hmm.
You're, by giving yourself discipline, it's your choice, right? So you're free to make that choice to give yourself discipline.
Mm-hmm. You're free to make those choices in the same way you're free to not be disciplined. You can sleep in the morning and not go get up when your alarm goes off, and then you have to deal with the consequences of that. So now you have you don't have that extra hour in your day. You don't have that all the projects and things you could have worked on in that extra hour. Like that's the choice you made, right? But if you have the discipline to say, okay, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. I wake up at 5 a.m. and then you're disciplined throughout the day, it's just like the snowball effect. It's just going to continue to grow in self-discipline throughout the day. And then that equates to throughout the months, years, things like that. So.
And I think it's also really important to not just have discipline, but to be happy about
totally.
having that discipline, right?
Mm-hmm. Shouldn't be such a chore, really. Jocko, as much as I love Jocko, he's a warrior. He's like an ex-Navy SEAL. Like, he takes it to the extreme. Like, that man gets up at 3 a.m. every single day, and then he goes and he busts something out in the gym. Personally, I don't really need or want that for my life, and I think the majority of people don't. But he loves it. He loves it, and that makes him so happy. So I think that ties into this, what you're talking about is, it's got to be disciplined towards things that matter to you, that you love, that are good for you. Don't be so hard on yourself and disciplined in things that you don't even enjoy, because then you're just wasting your time and you're not getting freedom from doing those things. You're putting yourself in a cage.
Yeah, when you discipline yourself, it has to feel right. You have to feel right about doing it. Like if you're a professional swimmer, right? You love swimming, you love practicing, so you're going to go to practice and you're going to swim every single day.
Yep, exactly. If you're a swimmer and you're getting in there and you're putting your time in the pool, and you're waking up early and you're going to bed late and you're practicing and you're meditating, you're visualizing the winds and the strokes and how you're going to overcome adversity, that equates to the freedom of you get an Olympic medal maybe, or you get the sponsorship from Nike that pays you a lot of money. Like those are, it's just, it all comes back to you in some form.
So with that whole, so with you being a very disciplined person,
Try to be.
yeah, try to be. I mean, I try to too. So your website, can you kind of explain about your website? Because it's
Totally.
really interesting when you told me about it. I forgot the name. I kind of forgot the dynamics, but I think that really has some interesting implications.
Thanks, man. So I just started this website called Gap the Year, and for a lot of different reasons. The first reason being that I realize that experience is probably the most important thing that you can give yourself. And so I was learning, I think what I was getting tired with university in general is, while in college, you're learning so many amazing things, but a lot of it just seems so theoretical all the time. It's just, I wanted to apply something. I wanted to build something, it was just driving me crazy just learning all these theories all the time. Like, why can't I do something with my hands, create something? So I started to teach myself digital marketing, and I fell in love with digital marketing. And what I love about digital marketing is you learn something about it and you can immediately apply it. And that takes discipline to apply it. But if you apply it, you start to create something. And so I taught myself how to create a website, and I taught myself how to run advertisements for websites on Google and Facebook and Instagram. And I was loving every second of it. And I started teaching myself all these skills during the pandemic, actually. And so finally, I sat down with myself and I said, okay, what do I want to create a website about? And it's got to be something that is a combination of something I know a lot about and something that I'm also passionate about. And I feel like if you can tie those two things together, it just makes creating something so exponentially easier, because you know a lot about it and you love it. So it's just like the creativity just flourishes. And so for me, something I'm really passionate about is traveling, but more specifically, like purposeful traveling. I like this idea of traveling, but not just jumping around from country to country and having fancy lattes and, just taking pictures for the gram and stuff. And of course that's fun, but that's kind of a vacation to me. I like the idea of going to another place and learning from that place. And
you want the experience of having lived there, having grown up there.
Totally,
right?
Totally. It's like I think I count, for myself, I don't count myself as having traveled anywhere unless I met with locals, I ate local food, and I learned something while I was there. If I just stopped off at the airport, or I just kind of was there for a day and I just went to a nice restaurant, it's like, okay, I didn't really get to experience that place. So I wholeheartedly love this idea of purposeful traveling. And so when I graduated high school, that's what I did. I graduated high school and all of my peers were going to the military, or they're going straight to college, or going straight into the workforce. And then I was the single person who's going to Thailand to go study Muay Thai kickboxing. And everyone thought I was just crazy. They're like, what? That's so unheard of. Such a weird path for someone to take. And I was really certain that was the right path for me, because I knew I was going to go to college, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And I thought, okay, why would I invest all this money and time into something I'm not certain about? I should be certain when I decide what degree I want. And I wanted to give myself some space, man. I had been going to school my whole life. I needed to learn more about what my passions were. So I go to Thailand, and I studied kickboxing there for 6 months. And I met the most amazing people ever that I'm still in touch with today. And I learned so much about myself. I gained so much confidence in my abilities. I got stronger mentally and physically. And so after I had gone through this incredible experience, I come to college and I noticed I was so dedicated to my studies compared to my peers. And I was just like going home and I was scheduling things, and I was just like ready to go. Like I was ready to learn. I was excited. And my peers were just like, like here we are, you know, we just graduated high school a few months ago and now it's like 4 more years of this. And they weren't soaking it up the way that I was. Some of them were. I don't want to generalize. But they weren't soaking it up the way that I was. They didn't appreciate it either. Because another thing about when I was in Asia was I saw poverty. I saw kids literally living underneath bridges that were just a few years younger than me, who had never received any formal education. And that will always stick with me, those experiences. I will always love and appreciate my education. So that's what I would call a gap year, okay? So my website's called Gap the Year, and a gap year essentially, in my definition, is a semester or a year that you purposely take off from the normal route that society creates for you of like high school, college, work, right? It's like you either take a break after high school, or you take some time off during the middle of your undergrad, or you take some time off after you graduate college. For me, those are gap years, okay, or gap semesters. And during that time, you just take that time for yourself. Take a step back, and what do you want to learn? Do you want to learn to code? Do you want to lose some weight that you've always wanted to lose? Do you want to gain some muscle? Do you want to learn how to speak another language? Do you want to learn how to cook? Do you want to reconnect with your heritage and your culture of your family? You know, like maybe your family's from Ecuador and you've lost touch with what that means to you. So you can go back and you can create that for yourself. And I just find that the people I've met that have taken this time off to do that for themselves have so much more certainty about who they are as a person. And it translates to them having so much more certainty about what they want to do with their career. So that was a super long tangent about what Gap the Year is. But basically what I'm doing with this website is I'm providing information for people who are interested in gap years, because there's not a lot of information out there. And so I'm telling them, like, here's the best places to go. Here's the different options you have. And then I'm also providing testimonials, and I'm interviewing people that I have met along the way who have also done a gap year. And I'm putting their interviews on the website so that way you can see what that person did. And you realize, I can do that too. This guy was 18 and he backpacked through Europe, and then he went to Ecuador and he hitchhiked, you know, and these are the lessons he learned from doing that. And I can do that too. I want people to realize it's a lot more accessible than they think it is. And ultimately, as far as a business is concerned, people that are interested in gap years, I'm hoping to reach out to them and consult with them. And I want to ask them, who do you want to be? What do you want to do? And then I can give them a list. Okay, cool. So you're interested in coding and you're interested in Spanish culture. So you can go to this coding boot camp in Barcelona or Madrid, or you can go study coding down in Argentina. And in 6 months, you'll be so good at Python that you could literally get a job before you even graduate from your undergrad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just want to give people that power and understanding about their lives. So that's what Gap the Year is.
You know, you bring that up, and with the whole, you could go and learn coding for a year and then you'd be better than the people that are coming out of college. That's kind of true in the sense that we have to go and we have to pay this tuition, and then we have to learn a bunch of things that don't really apply to us whatsoever. Right? So we're paying, most of what a college student pays for is completely worthless.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's nice to learn things, but you can learn all these things on your own. You can go on YouTube and learn about history whenever you want, or you can start writing if you feel like it. But at the end of the day, most jobs, you use about 5% of what you learned from school, right?
I think what the problem with higher ed is, and this is what Gary Vee, I watched a video by Gary Vee the other day, and he's talking about how the college ROI is now negative, you know? So you're spending all this money on this degree, not always, but a lot of the time. You're spending all this money on this degree, and the return on investment for the time and money you spend that degree is typically negative these days. And yet there's still like this huge push that you have to go to college all the time. And I do, and I'm not dogging on college. College has given me so much. It really has. It has just provided me with so much knowledge, and I feel like a much more educated citizen because of college, and I'm really grateful for that. And you can make the argument that I could have learned that even without college, and I do believe that. I think it's true. But I think college created the space and the environment for me to
it's the environment.
Exactly.
Sure.
It's
and
like
the people.
Yes, it's the people. You're here in this like space where you are just expected to study and learn, and you can do with that what you want, and so what you want to do with that. But I think what's happening is employers value experience way more than they value the fact that you got a degree at the end of the day. And so that's why I want to give people during this gap year. I want to give them that experience, that if they took 6 months out of their lives to learn coding or to learn digital marketing skills or learn another language, and then they go back and they get their degree and they experience all the beautiful benefits of university, that person is going to be so much better set for their life than the person who went straight from high school, got the degree their mom and dad told them to get, and then they go on the workforce and they're like, who am I? I have no idea, but I'm just like kind of going with the flow of society, right? And so I want to just like grab people out of that river and just be like, hey, check this out. There's all these other options over here. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so with all of that, it kind of goes to show that whenever you just take some time for yourself, it'll save you time in the long run. Right? Because if you go out and you do this gap year and then you learn about yourself, then you'll be able to go and then work even harder when you get back because you're like, oh, I want this, right? You'll know exactly what you want out of life, and then you'll be able to go and get it, right?
Exactly. With all the people that I've talked to about their gap years, I think the common theme that I have realized that exists with the gap year is they all say, my gap year gave me an opportunity to step back, and it allowed me the opportunity to realize who I am. But actually, I think one of the most important things about gap years I haven't even mentioned is throughout your entire time being in elementary school, middle school, high school, and even in college, you're juggling 6 or 7 subjects at a time, and you never get the opportunity to dive deep into any of those. Like if you're studying biology, chemistry, and then you're studying philosophy and Spanish, but Spanish just lights you up when you learn it, well, yeah, cool, you get to do your Spanish homework, but you better make time to do all the other subjects you have to study for, when you would rather just be spending more time learning Spanish. And I just think that the current system we have set up, it makes no sense, because I don't think the human mind is meant to try to compartmentalize all these different ideas at once. And so what a gap year does is it allows you to just step back, focus on one single thing that you want to really dive deep and learn all about, and then the process of learning is so fast. So I'll give you one more example with myself. I didn't necessarily take a gap year, but I kind of did in a way. I took another gap year after my time in Thailand. So I went to China in January of 2020, which is the same time that the coronavirus broke out. And so I was only in China for 3 weeks before we were all told to go home. And I said, I am not going home. I said, I came here with a mission to learn Mandarin, and I'm going to stay here. And so I left China and I went to Taiwan, which ended up being the best country in the world to be at, because they never reached the number of cases that any other place did. They were really good about making sure that they kept their businesses open but didn't have any cases spike. So anyways, I spent 3 months there just learning Mandarin, and it wasn't through a university. It was just through a private institution that was teaching me Mandarin. When I came back to college, I went from having studied beginner Mandarin, and I literally tested out of 4 different Chinese classes, 12 credits worth of Chinese, and I went into straight advanced Mandarin.
Wow.
In 3 months. And that's not because I'm super smart, because that's not what it is. It's because I was given the opportunity to just focus. All I did was study Mandarin. I studied Mandarin at home. I woke up in the morning, and on my way to class, I spoke with someone in Mandarin with what little bit I knew, and I learned a new word. And then as I was walking to class, I attempted to read a sign, and then I gathered another word, and I did that every year for 3 months. And my growth was so much more exponential than what college could have given me. So that's what gap years give people.
So you're also a fighter, right?
I would not say I'm a fighter anymore. I used to, but I love martial arts and I want to go back to it someday. I haven't been doing it recently. I've been focusing on other things. I want to learn new things. So I've been doing CrossFit a lot. I've been learning how to dance. Our buddy Rocky, him and I have been setting up a meeting once a week, and we're going to be dancing. So
cool.
Been taking a different route lately.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, dance, martial arts, like both of those things, they take a lot of discipline and time to learn, and they are both an art form. But with all that being said, so what's your philosophy of life in general?
That's a great question.
I know you delve into Eastern thought, Western thought. I don't know if you're religious, but
yeah, man, I have a lot of different philosophies.
I mean, that's good.
Yeah,
you should be well rounded.
Totally. And I'm always open to change. I think one of my biggest philosophies, and this has nothing to do with like really spirituality or religion or anything, it's just effort plus time equals progression. Kind of like discipline equals freedom, right? It's like another little equation like that. But I read this book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. It's one of my favorite books of all time because it was the first time that I realized how simple it is to progress in life. Because I think we get so in our heads about how to progress and how to be better. And we think, oh, you got to be born with these skills and these characteristics, and you had to be at the right place at the right time. And while some of that is true sometimes, I think for the most part, you can progress in life just by putting time into something that you love, right? So, for example, when I first started dancing, I was stiff and I looked awful. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I just am not, like, my body was not born to do this. I can't. That's how I am. But hear me out. So you think that, right? You think, oh, I just simply can't dance. My body and my mind are not made for it. But all you have to do is just put time into it and not give up on yourself and just continue to put time into it, and you will get progression out of it. Absolutely. You will not look the same way you did from day one. You spend 20 minutes a day learning to dance or something, give yourself 1 month, you're going to look like a completely different person. That goes with martial arts. That goes with learning a language. That goes with learning anything in life. So I think just breaking it down like that, just like, okay, what do you want to do? You want to make music? Okay, you want to be successful at a podcast? Cool. All you got to do is put time into it. That's it.
Exactly.
It's literally that simple. So I'd say that's one of my biggest philosophies in life.
You also have to make sacrifices.
Absolutely.
In order to have time to do things, you need to cut out certain aspects of your life.
Totally.
Right?
Social media, I think, is the biggest one.
Yeah.
I think social media makes you think that you're being productive. It gives you like that feeling that you did something, but you didn't do anything. You wasted that time. Let's be real. Unless your job is social media, like, you wasted that time that you just spent scrolling around. Unless you learned something, that's cool. That happens sometimes. But imagine all that time we spend scrolling through Instagram, all that time we spend on Facebook and Twitter and Reddit, and imagine if you just swapped that time, sacrificed that time, like you said, towards learning a pursuit of something. Oh my gosh, you would be so much better at that thing in literally a week. And I think a lot of people don't think of it like that, but that's how I think of it. Whenever I'm on my phone, I'm like, I'm sacrificing time that I could be spent reading or learning something to scroll mindlessly on my phone right now. And sometimes I'm cool with it, and sometimes I'm like, all right, man, let's get off the phone and let's go do something. So, yeah.
No, my dad said to me the other day that there's two things that are ruining the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook and plastic.
Ooh, I like that. I don't like that. But but I like that, just breaking it down to those two things. Social media is so toxic, man. It's the worst. Have you watched the documentary, what's it called? The Social Dilemma?
Yes, I have.
So good.
No, it's the thing is, well, it's called the social dilemma, right? Because there's two aspects of that. On one hand, you're being connected to millions of other people, unlike anything else in human history, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, they're essentially pitting people against each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're dividing our country, right? They're dividing the people of our country, right? And they're dividing the people of many countries. I remember there was this one part of the show where there was this developing nation, and they were put into a civil war from Facebook, right? When all the people of this nation, they were given a phone, and then the first app that was put on their phone was Facebook, and the government was using it to control the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's so that's why it's a dilemma. But it can be, we can still use it. People just need to learn how to be responsible with it.
And educate themselves on what's going on with it too. Because that's the thing. You say it's a dilemma because it's like two-faced. So you gave that first example. I can't remember which country it was. I want to say it was Chad, but I think I'm totally wrong.
Yeah, I don't
it
know.
was I think it was in Africa. But yeah, Facebook was a means of dividing the people there. Mm-hmm. But then you hear about when Facebook first came out, and it basically, not just Facebook, but a lot of the internet in general, it caused the Arab Spring. You know, the first time in our history where democracy was really pushed in the Middle East, where they were finally questioning their dictators and saying, we don't want to be told what to do by this one single person, right? We want a democracy. We want to have a voice. And social media was the means in which they were able to communicate. For the first time ever, they were able to use social media to gather and to post videos about the injustices that were happening. So it's like, on one face, you have social media doing these great things, but now it's just, I really would blame social media for the division of our country. And it's so sad because it doesn't seem like it's getting any better. But social media is the worst, and so is plastic. Plastic is pretty bad too. I try not to use plastic. I could be a lot better, but plastic's the worst also.
No, I just saw this documentary that just really shocked me about plastic, because we basically send almost all of our plastic to Asia, right? And then all that's dumped into rivers and it goes straight into the ocean. Mm-hmm. And it was just freaking me out, man. And so about a couple weeks ago, I went to the store and I thought, okay, you know what? Today I'm gonna use paper. Screw it. And you can fit more stuff in a paper bag.
You can.
It's much harder to carry it inside because, I mean, when you're using plastic bags, you can carry like
a lot more. Yeah,
you can carry like 20 bags in one go. But
that's the sacrifice you make, though.
Yeah.
To save the planet. I think the problem with plastic, or not the problem with plastic, but the problem with society's view on plastic is not enough people are seeing what plastic's doing to the planet. And myself included, I'm not seeing it enough, and it sometimes it distances me from the issue. But
we're protected from here in America, we're protected from much of the effects of all these environmental disasters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. It's like all the things that we're doing just go and hurt everybody else, but we're like very oblivious to it.
Not that any other country isn't also
totally
playing in this destruction of the world.
Yes. But I think sometimes their people are seeing it a little bit more, but that's not to say that they're not doing it any less. But the first time I saw how intense plastic was on the environment was I went scuba diving. I think it was in Thailand. I went scuba diving, and or snorkeling, I should say. And there was this big, gorgeous reef, and you could tell that this reef used to have a lot more color.
Mm-hmm.
You just look at it, and you could see where there was patches of like gorgeous, vibrant colors, and then other patches where it was gray and dying and decaying. And so we're swimming around, and as I got close to the corals, I just saw all this plastic, these shopping bags and just any type of plastic you could imagine. It was just in the coral reefs, and then the fish were picking around the plastic to get their food in the coral reef. And I remember I started grabbing some of the plastic and trying to bring it up to the boat, and the guys on the boat started laughing at me. They're just like, "You have no idea how much plastic is down there." And I was like, "Really?" So I went back down, and I started swimming a little further along, and I realized it would take me a lifetime to clean up how much plastic there is by myself. And so yeah, that's when I realized, okay, plastic's a little bit more bigger of a deal than I think it is.
Then we think, well, we could definitely do better than dumping it into the ocean, right?
Why do we even use plastic? Aren't there like way better ways to do the things that plastic does?
I mean, think about all the things that use plastic. I mean, this computer is made almost entirely of plastic, right? There might be plastic on your shoes. I don't know. There's plastic in this water jug. There's plastic basically in almost every part of that TV.
But there has to be a way that you can supplement that with something else.
Yeah,
there has to be.
No, you're right.
And I think there is something. I think they were talking about how there's hemp and there's all these other things.
No, hemp plastic is definitely the way to go.
And why are we not doing that? I don't understand it. It's like, if it's so clearly so much better for the world, we should just be investing so heavily in it.
Well, people are afraid of hemp.
Yeah, they are.
They're afraid of it. They think it's just like boogeyman.
They do. They think it's gonna turn them into a hippie if they use it, and they're so scared of it. And it's like, no, you're just gonna take care of the planet a little more. So
I think I heard from somewhere. I think it might have been the Joe Rogan podcast where back just a long time ago, hemp used to be one of the main textiles used to make clothes, make ropes, just all that kind of stuff back in just around the time where our founding fathers lived, right? In the 1780s and whatnot.
Because it's strong, it's durable, it grows really fast because it's a weed, and it doesn't take a lot of upkeep. It doesn't require a ton of water, from my understanding. And I think that almost threatens some people a little bit, because it is such a versatile plant that it maybe could put other things that we're having set in motion right now. It could put them out of business. That's one perspective I've heard with hemp.
Yeah, I mean, it would. That's kind of the whole perspective of switching to renewable energy instead of fossil fuels, because it'll put, Exxon out of business. It'll put just all these oil companies out of business, and a lot of people rely on these companies for jobs, right? But I mean, there's definitely a opportunity cost in relation to economic growth and the preservation of our Earth, because here we can keep growing, but at some point, if we destroy the Earth and the Arctic Circle and Antarctica, if all the polar ice caps melt, it'll lead to flooding, and then our whole atmosphere is going to get hotter. There's going to be forest fires. It's just going to be completely horrible.
Totally.
And then you won't be growing economically after that.
No.
So if we invest our resources into renewable resources now, it's going to save jobs in the future.
There has to be a track system where we are developing the renewable resources at a rate that is going to be easy for the United States or whatever country we're talking about to adapt to that change, especially with jobs. I think that's the most important thing. is, right now more so, we have an economy that's a little bit more geared towards, the non-renewable resources, and we need to be like sensitive to that almost. We can't just jump on this renewable train 100%. I don't think, as much as I would love that, I think it would confuse a lot of people, and a lot of people would be lost. They would be without job and without purpose. And so we need to integrate it at a healthy rate that's good for us and the environment. And the sooner the better, right? I get the impression that we're doing it pretty well, though. I think we could be going a lot faster, but you look at Tesla. I mean, holy cow! The past 4 years, I don't think I even had heard of Tesla 5 years ago, maybe, or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's like, look at their stock. It's like what, like $800 up right now? It's insane. They're just taking off right now. So it's amazing. I think we are experiencing a lot of change right now. The paradigm's changing a bit.
Yeah, no, I think over time it might get better. I think I saw some statistic that we're actually we're still putting out a lot of carbon emissions and a lot of pollution, but I think the rate is actually decreasing.
I hope so. I would like to believe that. I think from what I've seen, it seems that way. You see all these buildings coming up that are green buildings, the example is being set on what we can do with what we create: cars, buildings, electronics, everything. So,
well, I think a big thing is that in our modern society, we're largely separated from the outside world. We're separated from nature, unlike everything else in nature, which is completely immersed. So I know that you've been going on a lot of hikes with your brother. You've been going on a lot of trips. So tell me about how that has kind of, just going outside in general, just any time that you go outside, go on a hike, go camping. Tell me about how that feels to you, especially just if it feels relaxing, if it feels kind of spiritual, or like what your philosophy behind being outside is.
Going outside is my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, it's like traveling and going outside. Yeah. Ideally, the two of those. When I go outside and I spend some time with nature, I'm grounded. And I always hear that. People are like, oh, it grounds me. And I'm like, what does that mean? And I think it means, you have all the clutter of, you got this assignment and this project and this relationship and all these different things going on all the time. When you get out in nature, you're completely separated from those things, and you kind of are given this opportunity to dissect them a little bit in your head, while honestly being inspired by what's happening around you as far as nature. But I think probably the biggest thing that going outside can give you is a sense that the things that you think are so big in your brain, the issues and everything else, you sit on a mountaintop and you are the only thing that you can see for miles and miles. You realize you are so small in comparison to this planet. You are so small in comparison to the mountains around you, and so are your issues. They're even smaller, and they actually don't matter. Some of them do, of course. There's things you got to pay attention to. But I would guarantee that if you really dissected the things that concern you so much every day, you would come to realize, what am I even worried about? Like, just life goes on, man. It's fine. So nature just gives me all of that, and it all the endorphins and all the inspiration that it comes with, and everything else. So,
have you ever seen the movie No Country for Old Men?
I've seen part of it. And I actually really like that movie. I haven't finished it, though.
So the whole movie's... so the guy, like, one of the main characters is a serial killer, right? But he's supposed to represent death. Right? The Grim Reaper.
Okay.
And there's this one point where he's about to kill this guy, and then he says, so, if you lived by this one rule your entire life, but it led you to right here, right now, then what did that rule do you any good?
Ooh, that's crazy. What was the rule? Do you remember?
Well, the rule is just how they lived their life.
Gotcha.
Like, I woke up, I went to work, I, brought home money to my family or whatever. And then, we're all going to die. right?
Totally.
So what did all this, oh, like I decided, hey, I shouldn't smoke cigarettes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go through your life, and then you die, and then you're like, well, I guess it didn't really even
I was
matter
gonna
at
die
all,
anyways, right?
right? I'm not saying that you
No,
should
I
smoke. You
know.
should definitely not smoke
I get what
cigarettes.
you're saying. It's like you gotta. You can't be so hard on yourself, you
Mm.
know. Like you said, you're gonna die no matter what. So you might as well get busy living. You
Mm.
might as well start doing something,
Mm.
you know. And you shouldn't be so concerned about the vices. I think people
Mm.
are so scared of their vices, you know, and so they try to do this thing where they completely turn away from that.
Mm.
You know, their what's the word? Like their desires. They completely turn away from their desires. So they're so scared of them. And so they just are trying to be good little people and just, you know, listen to the man and just do their thing. But at the end of the day, they're gonna die too. So you might as well go eat that chocolate at midnight. You might as well go to that nightclub and do something crazy. Like you might as well, right? Just don't let it consume you. Don't let it, if it starts to impact
Control you.
Exactly. If it starts to impact your life negatively, that's when it's a problem. But you gotta live a little, man. You gotta
Take a gap year, man.
Yeah, take a gap year. Like, just do what you gotta do. I do feel that way. I think I was kind of, for a while in my life, I was so scared of the vices that I try to turn away from them completely. And it's not as fun, to be honest. It's not as fun. You gotta find a balance with everything. You gotta be good and kind and do good for society and do good for yourself and your health, and every once in a while you got to go out with your buddies and you got to go get wasted too, you know. I do believe that.
Yeah, well, but don't smoke cigarettes. You'll get cancer.
But don't smoke cigarettes. That's the one thing. Unless you're drunk, then have a cigarette. It kind of tastes good.
So I think with all of that, all of the problems that modern society faces are usually made up, right? Because before we were a society, we were all surviving, right? Just like what the uncontacted tribes are doing today. Or if you're in poverty, then really you're surviving all the time. So people that aren't in poverty and people that aren't in an uncontacted tribe, they're generally not really working for survival. They're just working to have some sort of a purpose, right?
I love that idea. I think about that a lot. There's this book called Tribe. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
Very good. I can't remember the name of the author. I think it's Sebastian something. Anyways, the book Tribe is about that exact topic that you're bringing up. Is this idea that throughout our history of as a species, we have been surviving. We had tigers coming at us. We had lions and crazy monkeys. Hold on, I'm gonna let you cough. Went down the wrong pipe.
Yeah, no, I was drinking this coffee and it just
Down the wrong pipe.
It's all good.
It happens.
Keep going.
But yeah, so throughout, you know, our time as being a species, for the majority of our time being a species, we've had external threats to worry about of things trying to kill us and our family and our tribe. And so that's encoded in our DNA. It is, because that's how you further the species, is you encode stresses into the DNA of the species. So when they come to be alive, they realize, okay, I gotta watch out for the tigers and the lions and all these things, right? It's just a sense they have. But now we live in cities and we're going to university and we're doing all these things, and the problem is I think it's probably one of the biggest problems in our society. We don't have a sense of purpose from doing this, you know. And unless you're trying to study to cure cancer, or you're going to college and you are getting this degree to translate directly into something that gives you a ton of purpose, I think a lot of people feel day to day that they aren't really doing anything for society or themselves. They don't feel like they're flourishing with purpose. And I think as a human, that's what you want. You want to have a purpose. You want to feel like you belong to a tribe, and you want to protect that tribe, and you want to protect yourself and your family and the people you love, and we don't have that anymore. And you have to find it, and you can. And I think the people that become very successful and fulfilled in their lives, they do find that purpose. And I think that's what we struggle with today. You know, we live in a city. You live in your flat in downtown New York, and you just go to work every day, and you're just doing what you're told to do, and you don't really feel like what you're doing is contributing to something bigger than yourself. And I think that is so important as a person. You've got to contribute to something bigger than yourself. So you got to take that power back, man. That's what it's about.
Yeah, and I think when we were talking about nature and going out, and when you go outside and you go hiking, or even if you just look at the stars, or if you look at the ocean, if you look at these big things and you understand that, hey, you know, I'm pretty small. You know, I'm not really significant in any sense whatsoever. So then you take that idea and then you think about your problems and all the problems that you get in your life, and then you kind of just say, hey, these problems aren't really that big either. And you know what? I can tackle it.
You can tackle all of them. You absolutely can, man.
Yes.
Whatever issues come your way, you can handle it. The issue wouldn't have come to you if you weren't able to handle it, you know? I also think with this idea of purpose and being in nature, I think purpose doesn't always have to be something so huge either. I think sometimes purpose is literally just, like you said, going out and laying underneath the stars and looking at them, you know, and pointing out the constellations and coming up with stories, or it's just going and swimming in the ocean early in the morning, or, you know, late at night with your friends and having a campfire on the beach. Like, that's purpose too. And I think part of just being a human, our purpose is to enjoy this life. Enjoy it, man. Why are people so scared to be happy? They're so scared to just enjoy the moment, the current moment, and to even let themselves go out and go into nature and go love and experience it, you know? But you go out and you have nothing but bliss and fun. And I don't understand why would you ever keep that from yourself, you know? You should love yourself so much that you want to give that to yourself as often as you possibly can.
Self-love is important.
Oh, for sure.
I've had many people tell me in my life that I'm never going to be able to love anyone unless I love myself first. Right.
That's true. Self-love is a long journey, I think. Because I'll think I love myself, and then I'll realize, oh man, you got a lot more loving to do. You know, you have to love yourself unconditionally, no matter what you do.
But not be egotistical.
Yes.
Because if
right?
you're egotistical and you're not a good person, you probably actually don't love yourself.
It's
right.
It's so hard to figure out where the ego starts and ends with self-love. Because I see a lot of people talking about self-love on social media and stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, a lot of that looks like you're just stroking your ego, you know?
Yeah.
I think
definitely.
It's hard because I think there's no guidebook to, oh, this is when it's the ego that's involved, right? I mean, there's definitely a lot of learning you can do and studying about when the ego is appearing in your life, but self-love, what is self-love, man? I think self-love is dedicating yourself to your purpose. Because you love yourself so much and you know what your potential is so much that it would be a waste to you and not even just you. This is the part where it extends over the ego. It would be a disjustice to society if you didn't live up to what you could do. And I love myself so much that I want to make sure I hold myself to that standard for myself and the people around me.
So. I think it's also, like if you were to have a son, right? How would you want that son to be? And
Huge.
However you want that son to be, that's how you should be.
Absolutely.
right?
I love that, man. You got to be like your own dad sometimes, and your own mom too. Let's be real. You got to like, you got to be that, because parents are awesome, man, and they did their best. I do believe that, but they always mess up, and we're gonna mess up when we have kids. We're gonna give them a little bit of issues. It's just how it goes. No one's gonna raise their kids perfectly, but yeah, and a lot of those times you gotta talk to yourself in your head the way you would speak to your child. Be that father for yourself. Don't be so mean to yourself when you mess up or when you're confused or hurt. That's when it's not self-love. That's when you're hating yourself. But what would your loving father say to you? He would say, "You're doing awesome, man. I'm so proud of you for giving this a shot and giving it the best you can." And that's what your father would say to you. So why would you not say that to yourself?
Exactly.
It's huge. I think that is something that a lot of people need to work on, is just speaking to themselves like their father would or their mother would. And don't be scared of it either. But I guess it might be hard for people to do that if their parents didn't show them an example of that, So how are they supposed to know how a father would speak to them if they never had a father figure that showed them, that love? So my heart goes out to those people, but I know there's a lot of resources for them to figure that out if they so choose. I do believe that.
I mean, this all ties into self-discipline, right? If you show yourself some love, you're probably going to put in some self-discipline. You're going to make sacrifices, because love is sacrifice a lot of the time. So if you love yourself, you're probably going to make some sacrifices for yourself, right? You're going to cut maybe some of those vices out. I mean, you should have some vices for sure, but if you cut them out just a little bit and then go about your day and have some of that self-discipline, some of that self-sacrifice, and some of that self-love, you'll probably go out into the world and be a better person.
Absolutely. I think love in general is just the most love and gratitude is the most powerful forces in the entire planet. And when you hear love and gratitude, you always think like, oh, pink hearts and like, oh, all this lovey-dovey stuff. And it's not. I don't really see it that way. I think love is like passion, right? It's like you love the pursuit of what you're doing so much you would never compromise it. It means so much to you as a person. You love your brother or your sister or your mom or your father so much that you would never compromise hurting them,
I think it's also, love is also having faith. Like having faith in yourself, having faith in the things that you love. Like, you know what, I made a mistake today, but I believe that from this day forward, I can make it up to myself.
Absolutely. And then with that, I think gratitude is just as important as love, actually. I think gratitude is what opens you up to being able to feel and express love. Because if you go throughout your day just constantly thinking about the things that you don't have, how are you going to be able to love yourself, love your current situation, or really just like provide any amount of love? Because when you're not having gratitude, you're just in this constant state of negativity, and people can really feel that. But if you wake up and you can find gratitude in everything, man. It's your bed, it's your room, it's your roommates, it's your sibling or your dog, or being outside, or having an education. That's huge, man. Having an education.
You should be grateful for even existing.
You should be grateful for existing, for waking up in the morning. If you led with that thought every day, and I wish I did. I want to sit here and say I do, but the days that I do lead with a lot of gratitude are always the best days. And I think when you're expressing gratitude, so much is able to just like, it's like life just magnetizes to you, opportunities, people, all these things. They come. It's like you become this magnet, and gratitude and love is what makes you a magnet
for things that make you grateful and things that you love.
Exactly, man, because it's like those things want to feel that too. So it's like they're like willing to come to you and like give themselves to you.
That kind of ties into the idea of manifestations that you were telling me about earlier.
Yeah, I think manifestations are really interesting. I don't look at manifestations in like a super hippy dippy way of like, oh, I sit here and I put it on my vision board and it happens. I think that's like you got to be a little
That's
realistic.
not how it works.
Yeah, you got to be realistic. But I think what happens is, well, I know this is what happens. This is the science behind it. And,
when you're positive, you'll start doing things in such a way that will lead to more positivity, right?
Yes. And that, but like, let's say you're trying to manifest something specifically in your life. So, okay, let's just say it's this podcast, right? Let's say like you're manifesting every day that you want this podcast to reach 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Okay. Like, let's say that's your manifestation goal. So you just sit on your ass and thinking that all day isn't really going to help, but you feeling that and visualizing that and really picturing what that looks like, then what happens is your brain starts to calculate and say, how can I find opportunities that create that reality, right? Because and I'm speaking science here. When the science says when you visualize something, your brain cannot understand the difference between what you visualize and what has actually happened in your reality when your eyes are open, right? So you create that reality in your head and you say, okay, I have 2,000 subscribers. This is what it feels like. This is what it is. And so now between today and your goal, you start to see all the opportunities. Oh, I could hit up him for a podcast. Oh, I could post it here, right? You're open to these ideas of growth and expansion that you wouldn't have if you didn't trust this podcast's ability to grow. You know what I mean?
Confidence.
Exactly. You gain the confidence. And you gain the creativity to do the things you need to do in order to grow this. But if you thought, oh man, this podcast is just like a side project and like I'm probably not going to get more than like 5 listens on this next one. You know what I mean? If like you start having those ideas, why would you ever put love and growth and expansion into something that you don't trust in, right? I think that's really it. I don't think it's that hard to actually, well, it's hard. It takes hard work. But if you just do the work, the things are going to happen.
And it won't feel like work.
Exactly.
Because you're loving every single second of doing it.
Exactly. It's like when you get in that flow state where you're so involved in what you're doing, it's just like you just don't want to stop, You just want to continue working and getting it done because it's just giving you so much purpose and fulfillment and happiness. And there's a lot of work that can get done when you're in your flow state. But you got to activate that, man. And that's where, tying back to manifestations, like, that's where you activate it. You won't get there if you don't spend time visualizing and considering your goals. So Michael Phelps, this is a really cool thing about visualization. So Michael Phelps, his coach would make him picture every single stroke that he was going to take in the meets, right? So every single stroke he did, he had already thought about it. Like he knew the exact amount of strokes he needed to take from the start of the lane to the end of the lane. He knew the exact amount of strokes, and then he knew the point in which he needed to do the flip in the water to go to the other side, right? So during I can't remember if it was in the Olympics or not, but I want to say it was. It was either the qualifiers or it was the Olympics. His goggles came off when he jumped in the water. Wow. And most people would freak out, and they're like, I can't see. There's no way I can compete right now. Michael Phelps had already visualized exactly how that meet was going to go, and he took first place. He didn't even know it until he got out of the water, and he realized he destroyed everybody. But he had already lived out that moment so many times in his brain that when his goggles came off, he's just like, cool. Now I just like turn on that program that I put in my brain, and now it's happening. And then he killed it. He destroyed it. You can do that with anything.
I mean, your brain is a simulation machine. It is built to make simulations. Every night when you go to sleep, your brain simulates things. It's called dreaming. And you can use this to your advantage.
Mm-hmm.
You have it. We have it. Whether we evolved to have it or God gave us this ability,
Mm-hmm.
it's there, and it's there to benefit you,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what.
It is, man. Your life, the universe, your brain, it is here to serve you. And we flip that. We think that we react to the planet. We think that we get in this like survival mode of like reaction, like life happens to me. No, you happen to life. You can create the life that you want.
Life doesn't happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
It happens for you.
Absolutely. And you know, the more you can remind yourself of that, it's so much better.
Mm-hmm.
But I like this idea of your mind being like a, what was the word you used? Like
simulation
creator. I love that. I've never quite thought of it like that. I've always thought of the brain as like just like a computer, and my thoughts are like the programming that I'm putting into it. And so I try to be super delicate about the programming that I'm putting into it. And that's not to say that I'm a master at it by any means, but I definitely try to be very conscious of my thoughts. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if we tie this to Buddhist teachings, right? Your mind is a garden, and you don't want to let weeds grow in your garden. Right?
I love that.
You just want flowers grow in your garden.
And sometimes, as good as we can be about trying to plant those flowers, like weeds pop up, and sometimes they're hiding and you don't even see them, but they pop up. It's like they're popping up in the subconscious. They're popping up somewhere, and you have to spend time sorting through the flowers, and you gotta find those weeds that have been killing some of those flowers that you didn't even realize it was happening, but it happens. And I think it's fun, man. I think life would be boring if like all we ever had was flowers. You know, what work would there be to do?
Exactly.
I was talking to my brother about this the other day, and I asked him, I said, you know, we were talking about how much effort we put in the gym and into like our pursuits and stuff, and like how sometimes it's frustrating, you don't get where you want to be as fast as you want to be. And I said to him, I go, okay, Matt, well, imagine if you snapped your fingers and you had everything you wanted. You had the perfect physique, you were lifting all the weight you wanted to lift, you had the dream job, you know, you had the dream girlfriend, like you had it all. You just like snap your fingers and there it is.
That would suck.
That would suck, bro. That would be the most boring life ever. Like, what's the point of that? I would be depressed if that was the case. It's the pursuit of getting those things that makes life worth living at all.
Right, to the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, totally. You know, it's the work, man. It's one analogy I love for this idea is I heard this on the Aubrey Marcus podcast. So he's talking about how this little boy found this like cocoon, and he noticed that the butterfly was like starting its way to get out of the cocoon, and the boy took a little knife and he slit through the cocoon and he let the butterfly come out on it. You know, he just like literally released the butterfly out of the cocoon, and the butterfly could not fly and it died. And he was really sad about it. And he asked his mom, he's like, why did that kill the butterfly? You know, I thought I was helping it. And she said, the butterfly gains strength and the ability to fly in the struggle to get out of the cocoon. It's the struggle to exit the cocoon that strengthens its wings and also like squeezes out all the toxins and the juices in its wings. So that way when it emerges, it can fly on its own. So never ever let somebody take that from you, basically. Don't let anyone be that little boy with like the putting the knife in your cocoon, right? Like that is your destiny and privilege of life to get out of that cocoon on your own. So, yeah.
The struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart.
Oh, I think you texted me that one time.
Yeah, it's my favorite quote of all time. It's by Albert Camus. He was I think a French existentialist philosopher, post-war era, 1950s, and he was a high school teacher. and he wrote this story called The Myth of Sisyphus, right? And it was about this. It's this old Greek myth about this king called Sisyphus, and he dies and he's sent to hell, Hades, and then while he's down there, he tricks the king of hell into bounding himself with these unbreakable chains. So then Zeus says, "How could you have tricked the gods? How could you have done that? That's horrible." So then he condemns Sisyphus to this place where he has to push this boulder up this hill. And right as he gets up to the top, it rolls back down. And he has to do this every single day. And this is supposed to be an allegory for our daily struggles, where we have to wake up every day, we have to go to work, and then we start walking down the mountain, and that's when we're getting home from work and we're going to sleep. And the thing is, you could do two things. You could despise this event, you could despise your life, you could despise this endless struggle, this everlasting task. Or you could have one last trick for the gods, one last trick for Zeus, and it is enjoying the struggle that he's giving you.
I love that. Right? I've never heard that story that way. That is really inspiring, actually. I think what I struggle with sometimes in relation to that story is I will push that rock up the mountain, and there will be days where I just I kick that rock, dude, and it just sends up the mountain, and I'm just and I'll be like, okay, cool, I can leisurely walk up to meet the boulder now, right? Because I just put in so much effort and work into pushing that boulder up, and then that boulder will just absolutely plummet into me. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, it's just as hard as it was before. It never gets easier. It's like putting the boulder up a mountain is always going to be hard. You will never reach this point where you're like, oh man, cool, I'm at the top of the mountain now. I can look at the scenery and just coast from here. I love that, man. That's cool. I think it's really good to think of it that way, because you got to consistently put effort into pushing that boulder up. You can't, I think if you just do it in spurts, or, you try to just take a break, from pushing it up, the boulder's there. It's always going to be there.
And you have to find meaning in whatever task you're doing, whatever endless arbitrary task you're doing. You have to find meaning in it. You have to find enjoyment in it.
Have you ever read the book Man's Search for Meaning?
By Elie Wiesel.
It's by, I can't remember his name. I don't think that's his name. Wait, maybe. It's the
or maybe
book.
I'm thinking of Night.
Man's Search for Meaning is about a psychologist who survived the Holocaust.
Yeah, Elie Wiesel.
Yeah, that's him. Okay, how do you say his last name? Ozel?
I think it's Wiesel.
Wiesel? Okay, I think that's right. But yeah. So that book is talking about exactly what you're talking about. Is the men in the Holocaust, and the women as well, who died, were the ones who had lost a sense of purpose in what they were doing. They died really quickly, actually. But the survivors, a lot of the survivors survived because they found even the smallest bit of purpose in what they were doing in the camps. And I love learning about that idea, and it's horrifying that ever happened, but what you learn from that is these camps were this space in which really it would be almost impossible to find any sense of purpose.
It was hell.
Yeah, it was a manifestation of hell.
Hell.
Yes. These people were living the worst possible scenario of the human existence ever. And they still found purpose in doing some of the smallest, most mundane things ever. And their bodies responded to it. And the people who, who gave up and just thought, and of course, of course they would feel that way. I think most of us would. But the people who felt that there was no purpose to what they were doing and they gave up, their bodies responded to that. And they would sometimes die the day after they would say, there's no purpose to my life, I would rather die, right? And then they would quite literally die the next day. So I think it takes a lot of discipline to find that purpose, to constantly remind yourself there's purpose in what I'm doing right now. So
yeah, you have to overcome hell.
And
that's your greatest just trick to the people or just whatever's punishing you in life. Your greatest rebellion. That's what Camus said. He said that this is a rebellion. It's a rebellion to say, hey, you know what? You're giving me hell, but I don't care.
In fact, I love it. Like, that's game over, man. If you can love the struggle, like, that's it. Because what can you do to that man? What can you do to that woman? What can you do to that person? Nothing, man. They're gonna find purpose and love and enjoyment in whatever you throw at them. And every struggle you give them, they're going to learn something from that because of how much they love it. They're gonna learn something that empowers them to be better at being a person in their day-to-day life. So I really love that story. I never knew that he was doing it as like a bit of an FU to Zeus. I had never heard of that before. So, and that just makes so much sense to me. So I love that.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it.
Cool. Thanks, Greg. This was a great time, man. I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, no problem. I really appreciate having you on. For all you out there that if you have any suggestions or you want to suggest someone to come onto the podcast, or if you want to suggest something for me to research, just email into.the.absurd.podcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.